Hi, I'm Jack Draper. Shout out to QualityShot Tennis.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's WTA preview and prediction time for the Miami Open 2023 tournament. Bianca Andreescu versus Maria Sakkari. And if any of the previous meetings between the two is anything to go by, this is going to be a really exciting matchup. So we're going to talk about their current form, then also look into their head-to-head as well, because as I said, they've had some really close matches. And then ultimately, I'll give you guys my prediction as well, catering in the conditions, their form levels, and also technically as well how the match might play out. Before we get into it though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new. Over 80% of you are still not subscribed to the channel who are watching the channel, so please do subscribe. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and it really does help us out on the channel. Also, do remember to like the videos and share them. If you're listening on a podcast platform, do leave a rating or a review. Let's get into it then. So Maria Sakkari is a player who has been in some interesting form over the past 6 months. However, the positive thing for Maria Sakkari is that she just made the semi-finals of Indian Wells last week. She's looking like she's starting to find her feet again, and Miami is not too dissimilar in terms of conditions to Indian Wells. It's a bit more humid, so physically it can be a bit more trying, but the courts are a little bit quicker as well. For Sakkari, that's not really a massive issue. She's incredible in terms of her athletic ability and arguably the best athlete on tour on the WTA side. It's well known how incredible she is in the gym in terms of her performance in the gym, and just you can tell by her physique as well that she is someone who really does look after herself. For Andreescu, she has had a similarly interesting start to the season. Not probably the best start she would have wanted, but some positive signs last week. Ran Iga Swiatek close, and then, of course, for anyone that watched the preview video that I did with Andreescu versus Raducanu, I actually had picked Andreescu in my bracket, but when it came to prediction time and doing one of these videos, I went back on myself. I went Raducanu in 3, but ended up being Andreescu in 3. I was really impressed with Andreescu's performance, by the way, so we'll touch upon that and cater that into my decision, because I thought there were certain aspects like her serve, which I thought were a lot better in that match than I was expecting, and I was impressed at how she managed to apply herself in some of the big moments as well. So in terms of both players, well, for Sakkari, she has a slight disadvantage in the sense that she hasn't played on this surface in terms of match play anyway. She would have, of course, practiced on this surface, whereas Andreescu has that Raducanu match under her belt. 3 sets. She shouldn't be fatigued. It's the first round. And her physical conditioning, she's probably not as much the standard of Sakkari in terms of physical excellence, you could say, and how conditioned she is, but she's not too far away. Yes, she doesn't have the bulging muscles and the very extremely lean physique that Sakkari does, but if you've watched her matches and seen her style, she is athletically inclined. She's able to make her way around the court really easily, and her movement is very good for the most part, and defensively very, very good, and intelligent in her play as well. Has a very good tennis IQ. So you can see his Sakkari lost to Sabalenka in the semi-finals of Indian Wells. Some good wins against Kvitova, Pliskova, etc., etc. And then, of course, Andreescu, beating Raducanu in 3 sets. Then Swiatek lost to her in straight sets last week. But the 3-set win over Raducanu was very impressive. What's interesting here is they've only ever played each other twice, by the way, Sakkari and Andreescu. Once, ironically, at the Miami Open, where Andreescu did win. And she won in 3 sets, but 3 very, very tight sets. So the scoreline was 7-6, 3-6, 7-6. So beat Sakkari in 2 tiebreakers, with Sakkari taking the second set. And then they play each other at the US Open in the quarterfinals. And this time Sakkari won again in the same year in 2021. And Sakkari took it 6-7, 7-6, 6-3. So again, 2 tiebreakers in there. And Sakkari ended up coming out on top. So, really, really interesting. Of course, that's the tournament that Raducanu went on to win that US Open tournament. Sakkari would have, well, whoever won this would have gone on to play Raducanu. So it could have been very different, right? Andreescu could have won this, gone on to play Raducanu in the semi-finals, potentially beat her, because the last 2 times they've played, she's beaten her. And then maybe we're talking about Andreescu winning another US Open title or making another final, and maybe her career would have, progressed in a more linear way than it has. But yeah, very interesting and a big moment, I think, for both players' careers potentially at that point. So 2 really, really close matches. And it's not surprising, because if we talk about style of play and how they play, we know that Sakkari defensively is all very, very sound. Shot tolerance is pretty good as well. She's hits with a lot of intent on her ground strokes. Isn't the biggest of hitters from the baseline, but hits a lot of topspin. Tries to find angles, tries to push her opponents, and physically tries to break down her opponents. And as I said, defensively, very, very sound. Returning wise as well, very quick on the return. Tries to be aggressive on the return, get on the front foot. Her serve, that there's some things to still be worked on her serve, but she's at that age where it's difficult to make huge leaps and bounds unless she revamps it. But there's definitely room for improvement still on that serve. It's not the weapon it should be. And ironically, I would have said the same thing about Andreescu before the Raducanu match. I think there is still room for improvement, especially on the second serve. The first serve, though, in fairness to Bianca Andreescu, I mean, she hit 64% of first serves in against Raducanu, 67% of first serve points won, still not above the 70% mark. So it's not, it's still not incredible, but it's still impressive. And on top of that, the most impressive thing for me was 7 aces from 3 sets. Now, I wouldn't expect Andreescu to hit that many aces in a match, if I'm being honest with you. And she hit some aces in some really big moments as well, breakpoint down, or in really, really tight games on her service games. And that's what really, really stood out. 11 out of 12 breakpoints saved as well. I mean, there was a lot of breakpoint opportunities for both players in that match. Raducanu only saved 8 out of 11, so she actually had 1 less breakpoint opportunity to save, but Andreescu better at being able to just step up her level and be clutch in those big points, only getting broken once out of 12 opportunities, whereas Raducanu got broken 3 times out of 11. So that's where the big difference came. And second set points won, to be fair to her, 65% is very good. But that's mainly not necessarily due to the second serve, but more down to the fact that Andreescu defends very, very well. She really does. She slices well on the forehand and backhand side, deep into play. She'll hit a perceived moon ball as well at times to give herself time, with a lot of precision, normally deep into court. She mixes it up nicely, and she can also hit with power from the back of the court as well, as we saw against Raducanu, even. One thing that really impressed me was not only the fact that she was able to ramp up her first serve with more pace than I was expecting, and also hitting her spots better than I expected, but she also hit some really good body serves, which against someone like a Raducanu or Sakkari, who are both very athletic and they're trying to get on the front foot, it can cramp them. It can really disrupt the return rhythm. So that was a really, really, really intelligent decision by Andreescu in some big moments as well on her serve. For Sakkari, I think, she needs to be very, very solid, I think, from the back of the court, not making a lot of mistakes. And I think she needs to show Andreescu that she can't be on the defensive and expect to win points and try and induce errors out of her. She needs to also be offensive, and that might lead to some mistakes on Andreescu's part. I think she also needs to try and attack the Andreescu second serve, because that's where she's going to get her real success. And even sometimes on the first serve, the level can drop a little bit, and she won't drop into play, of course, but it can be down the middle of the box into the opponent's hitting zone, and that's where she needs to really make it count. Similarly for Andreescu, she'll be looking to cash in on the second serve of Sakkari as well, and the first serve at times, because both players don't have the biggest of serves. So we might see a similar scenario to the Raducanu and Andreescu match, where both players have a lot of break points, and then it comes down to who is able to hold their nerve the best in those big points. Who's able to find a big first serve or an ace who's able to find unreturnable or a big 1+ shot, and who's going to back their game as well. Because the one thing that Raducanu did and to be fair, it wasn't a huge amount of points, but in some of the breakpoint opportunities, she wasn't. Was not ambitious. I don't think that's the right word. She wasn't expansive enough in her play. She was a little bit tentative and a little bit not necessarily nervy, but conservative in the way that she approached those return points, add up, and break point opportunity. I think she just. I don't think she tightened up, but I think she was looking to get Andreescu to make an error rather than actually trying to take the point away from her and win the point. She was hoping that Andreescu would lose the point, and was going down the middle of the court. Not a lot of depth, not a lot of pace as much as she would from the Jew side, and that's what made her pay. I would say ultimately, because there wasn't a lot in it, as you can say from the break points, right? 2-2 in the third set, and then Andreescu ran away with it 4 games in a row. And for Sakkari, it's going to be a similar thing. It's who can back themselves and back their game in the big moments. And I think Andreescu did that really well because she found big serves, she found big 1+ shots, came to the net as well, beautifully transitioned. That's the one thing with Sakkari. She might try and come to the net, but I'm not extremely confident in her net game. And Andreescu is a very good has a very, very good passing shot ability. She really does. I just think athletically and the way that the different layers she has to her game, she's a bit more dynamic than Sakkari. But Sakkari has the engine, she has the determination, the intent, and also the physical endurance to really cause Andreescu problems and drag it out. And I think, despite Andreescu being really well conditioned, I think in Miami, I think the conditions we saw with Raducanu being out of breath at times, I think Andreescu is probably more used to it. If Sakkari takes Andreescu into deep waters, I think it's going to affect her more than it's going to affect Sakkari. So if I was Andreescu, I wouldn't want to get into really long rallies with Sakkari on a consistent basis anyway. Like at times, fine, because she probably backs herself in her defensive ability, but it's not something that you want to get dragged into a lot. That's my opinion on it. But as you can tell from the way I'm talking about it, this is a very, very, very close match to call. It really is. I actually think it could potentially be even closer than the Raducanu-Andreescu match, which I said was a 50-50, but I think maybe in hindsight's a beautiful thing, but maybe say 55-45 or 60-40 Andreescu. I think this is a real true 50-50, and you could say maybe Sakkari has a slight edge making the semifinals last week, but then Andreescu was really impressive against Swiatek as well. So the head-to-head is 1-1 as well, which makes it even more tasty. I'm going to go Andreescu in 3 sets. I think she will take big momentum from that Raducanu win. I do think she will. And I think she's got a slight advantage playing on the courts as well. For Sakkari, I don't think she'll necessarily be tired, but I think there may be some sort of fatigue from playing a lot of tennis in the last few months and also making the semi-finals of Indian Wells. And I do think that maybe a first match against Andreescu is a very, very tough match to get a feel into. And I feel like maybe Andreescu might take the match away from her early doors. But we'll see. It really depends as well on how well Sakkari adapts to the conditions early doors, because Sakkari has already played, as I said, on the court. So she's going to be in full swing straight away. For Sakkari, it might take her a few games. And then it's a question of, is it too late? Is the match almost gone potentially? Because I can't see her having a really, really quick start because of the lack of match practice. But let me know your thoughts anyway. I'm going to go Andreescu in 3 sets. I'm not going to back against Andreescu after backing against her in my preview and prediction video for the Raducanu match. But I did pick her in my brackets. That's good. And I did pick her, I think, to beat Sakkari as well. So let me know your thoughts on who you think is going to win and why, and whether you agree with any of my points. And if I've missed anything, let me know in the comments as well. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you on the next video. And also shout out to our members, of course, as always. Really appreciate your support.